This movie, when you watch it, feels like this massive, beautiful summer adventure. But in reality, we had no budget. It was all about favors, asking for help, and doing a lot of begging. And Taylor, well, she was with me every step of the way. She lived through the entire journey with me. And honestly, I can't even express how much her support meant. She really shows up for you, and that kind of love is something I'm so thankful for. But there were other people too. People I had to call and beg, even some who said no. And honestly, I'm still not sure what that means when someone says no. I'd love to find the definition of that word. It's so confusing to me. But anyway, we begged. We begged for songs that we couldn't afford. It wasn't easy, but I just kept asking, please, see the movie. I know you'll want to be part of it. We all want to connect with others. We're all storytellers at heart. And I'm so proud of the soundtrack in this film. Switching tone to Kady Joy's voice. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Kady Joy. Hope you're having a great day. Now, Blake Lively is shifting her narrative, and the question is, does that mean she's lying? I mean, one time Brian Friedman said, documents don't lie, but people do. That quote definitely deserves its own merchandise, but since it's not my own, I'm not about to steal it. But speaking of stealing, allegedly, of course, it seems Blake Lively is doing some narrative stealing of her own. So here's the thing. She's reworking her story about Justin Baldoni and a film she allegedly saw about a home birth. This film was labeled adult, illicit content, stuff you can find floating around online. But now she's changing how she talks about it, possibly to reclaim the narrative as a victim. And it's all unfolding in a legal battle in Texas. Here's the kicker. Blake recently disclosed private medical information and even shared Jed Wallace's address in a filing. Now, get this. Blake's team had previously argued in New York that these details should be protected, but apparently they weren't concerned about that when it came to Texas. The affidavit was signed, the address was released, and there was no redaction to protect it. And this is Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds we're talking about, so of course, it adds to the hypocrisy. But what really stands out here is the shift in her approach. She's trying to reframe things. Her new defense? Claiming Jed Wallace is behind this fabricated smear campaign she's been trying to push since last August. She wants everyone to believe that Justin is the reason people don't like her. It's not her behavior. It's not the fact that she created advertisements for her alcohol brand that resembled the book It Ends With Us, but with the title It Ends With Buzz. Or how, at the screening and after party, she promoted alcoholic beverages named after an abuser, Raoul White, who's tied to domestic violence cases. But no, she's blaming Jed Wallace. She wants you to believe that he's the one causing her problems, not her own choices and marketing decisions. And now she's doubling down, saying filing a complaint against him isn't defamation. And that, my friends, is where the story gets even more interesting. It's interesting to see how things unfold, especially when it comes to how she twists certain events. If you dig into the various filings, she presents different narratives, and in her latest complaint, she doesn't hold back. Here's how she describes a particular incident involving Jamie Heath. According to her, Heath approached her and her assistant on set, then started showing a video of a naked woman with her legs spread. She thought it was pornography and stopped him, but he explained that the video was actually of his wife giving birth. Miss Lively was shocked and asked if his wife knew he was sharing the footage, to which he responded, "She isn't weird about this stuff." The implication here was that Miss Lively was somehow strange for not accepting it, and she and her assistant quickly excused themselves, still in shock. This is her version of the event, where Jamie Heath showed her a still picture from a home birth. The image is of his wife with a towel over her chest, her body entirely covered, with only her legs visible as she had just given birth. She labeled this as pornography. But wait, her story shifts as she moves through different filings. When it comes to sexual harassment allegations, her CRD complaint talks about Baldoni divulging details about his sex life, making degrading comments, and introducing unscripted intimacy and nudity into a scene, something she claimed wasn't discussed or rehearsed beforehand. She specifically mentioned a birthing scene where Baldoni cast a friend as her OB/GYN. However, she started framing this moment as an attempt to add nudity to the scene, which wasn't true. She was later advised by the intimacy coordinator, and any nudity that might have been considered was entirely subject to her consent. She even insists that the intimacy coordinator suggested an on-camera orgasm, though this was never included. Now she's trying to twist the narrative to suggest that Baldoni wanted to add unscripted nudity to the birthing scene, casting his friend as her OB/GYN. This doesn't line up with the facts. If you go back to her CRD complaint, she explicitly said she thought she was shown pornography, not that she was about to act in a nudity-heavy birth scene. The media has jumped on this, painting Baldoni as forcing them to watch these explicit films, but this is a distortion of her complaint. And as Megan Twohey highlighted in a podcast, this interpretation came from her, not Baldoni. When Baldoni mentioned his wife wasn't weird about this stuff, that wasn't an insult to Miss Lively. It was just a casual remark about his wife's comfort level with sharing the video. But Lively took offense, interpreting it as though he was implying something about her. What's even more telling is that Lively seems unable to separate herself from her character, Lily. She appears to view every conversation and situation as directly tied to her, not the role she's playing. This has caused confusion and tension on set, with issues arising from her personal involvement bleeding into her professional one. For example, in one scene, she claims her OB/GYN was cast to play her personal doctor, but the actor was actually cast to play Lily's OB/GYN, not Blake Lively's. In the scene, she wore a full gown and briefs, with nothing revealing. Her legs were the only visible part. No nudity. And yet now, the story shifts again, implying that the OB/GYN was going to be placed in an intimate setting where she would be more exposed. But was she? No, that didn't happen. Miss Lively also attempts to frame her reputation as being the victim of a smear campaign. She points to stories planted by Melissa Nathan, which allegedly portrayed her in a negative light. In reality, though, the information wasn't fabricated. Her reputation had already been in question following issues on the set of the rhythm section, where there were reports of serious problems. Articles had surfaced in the past, citing her demanding behavior and feuds with co-stars. She even allegedly orchestrated stories blaming her for production members' job losses. But again, these weren't just rumors. They had basis in reality. In this saga, countless people lost their jobs, all because of a dramatic takeover that shifted the entire dynamic of the film. 2 assistant directors were let go. The composer, editors, many had their careers abruptly halted. Blake Lively, who had a hand in the whole mess, worked closely with the New York Times to leak details of the CRD complaint. In response, her legal team sent cease and desist letters to Wallace Belden and others. But by then, the story had already exploded in the media, with TMZ leading the charge. The next day, the New York Times picked up the story, publishing an article titled, "We Can Bury Anyone Inside a Hollywood Smear Machine," which made waves. She claims the New York Times wasn't the source of the leak, but in the very same motion to dismiss, she argued that it didn't matter if it was leaked because the CRD complaint was a legal document. Under litigation privilege, she argued anything in that document was protected, even if it was leaked. The issue, however, was the article by TMZ that published a defamatory statement from Brian Freedman representing the plaintiffs. Freedman lashed out, calling the lawsuit an attempt to fix Lively's tarnished reputation. He claimed the allegations were false, outrageous, and intentionally salacious, designed to publicly harm her. He accused her of being a nightmare on set, threatening not to show up or promote the film, ultimately contributing to its downfall. She labeled this defamatory, even though there was evidence proving those claims true. The New York Times article, however, gained more traction, where they actually published the complaint for readers to see for themselves. But here's where things get even more interesting. Lively, after accusing everyone involved of sexual harassment in the CRD complaint, now tries to flip the narrative. She's asking for the lawsuit to be dismissed, claiming the plaintiffs failed to prove defamation. In her filing, she even noted that she didn't explicitly state that anyone had harassed her or breached their contract with her. Yet, in the same document, she argued that the retaliation campaign, publicly harming her in the media, couldn't possibly be seen as harassment, even though that's exactly what it sounds like. She further describes the social media services that plaintiffs were hired to handle for Wayfair and Baldoni, even listing text messages as proof. But what she conveniently leaves out are the lines that disprove her claims. And then, in a strange twist, she argues that she never filed anything with malice, claiming she truly believed the plaintiffs were behind a retaliatory social media campaign aimed at hurting her for speaking out about the sexual harassment and hostile workplace she allegedly endured. This, she insists, isn't malicious, but rather a genuine belief in the harm done to her. It's almost poetic. After everything is said and done, it's all based on belief, and that belief forms the foundation of her defense. Wouldn't you agree that everything, from the social media campaign to the legal complaints, hinges on information that could easily be challenged or verified? When someone says information and belief, it means they don't have concrete proof to back up their claim. Instead, they're relying on what they believe, either from third-party accounts or their own understanding, even though they lack the actual evidence. Blake Lively, in particular, has just outed herself. She believes there's been a smear campaign against her. She believes people are trying to hurt her reputation. But that's all it is. A belief, not a fact. Now, in a legal setting, there's a huge difference between facts and beliefs. A fact is something that is objectively true and can be proven with evidence, something you can observe, measure, or document. A belief, on the other hand, is just a personal conviction or opinion. It's sincere, perhaps, but that doesn't make it true or provable. Courts don't rely on beliefs. They rely on facts and evidence. A belief can explain someone's intent or motive, but it can't establish what actually happened. And judges? They weigh evidence, not assumptions. So here's the crux of it. Blake Lively is filing a lawsuit based on her belief that a smear campaign happened. Not on proof, just on her belief that it did. The irony? She might have helped fuel the backlash herself with the marketing campaign she and her husband orchestrated. When you start to notice the shifting stories, from one complaint to the next, it raises red flags. It's like she's changing her own narrative as it suits her. And that's why a lot of people find it hard to believe her when she claims it's her belief that the smear campaign exists. As I read through her court records, all I see is a woman who seems unsteady, who seems like she might be struggling with something deeper. There's something seriously wrong here, whether it's a personality disorder, some kind of undiagnosed mental illness, or something like paranoia. But here's the kicker. You can't seek damages based on belief alone. She has to present facts, and right now, she has none. Now, let's take a look at how she opened up her lawsuit. On page 4, she writes, Lively starred in the 2024 hit film It Ends With Us, which Justin Baldoni directed and his studio Fair Studios LLC produced and owns. Interesting, right? How many times did Lively parade herself on the red carpet, acting like she had this film in her back pocket? She claimed it was her film, that she was the one pulling all the strings, even suggesting she worked with a modest budget to make it happen. But now, Fair Studios owns the film. And then there are these odd statements in her legal filings. How she made the movie a success, how she volunteered her time and wasn't paid what she deserved. Yet, in court, she conveniently forgets to mention that she's not the owner of the film. The studio owns it, including the sequel. Her story keeps shifting. She keeps changing her version of events. So now, we're left questioning. Is this lawsuit a desperate attempt in bad faith? A way to blame someone else because her reputation took a hit? Maybe she's trying to cover up the fact that she was the one responsible for the damage in the first place. And I still don't understand why she filed this lawsuit in December. Perhaps it was just before another film, A Simple Favor, was about to come out, and she needed to rebrand herself. Who knows? But here's the point. Just because you believe something happened doesn't make it true. And just because you're upset about not owning the rights to a film or the sequel doesn't mean the world owes you anything. Let's look at this. In her court records, she's painting herself as nothing more than the star of the movie. Funny though, because she never mentions that she's the producer. Isn't that a little odd? I thought she was the producer too. So, what do you think? Is she caught faking it? What do you make of her constantly changing her story about the birth video, or her belief that the actor was going to be her OBGYN instead of Lily's? And what about the way she keeps shifting her narrative? Is this going to unravel her case further? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And before you leave, hit that thumbs up button. I'd love to see 10,000 of you smash that like button. I've yet to get one of those. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.